of our quilts leave our homes once we get the binding on. They relocate to our family, friends, and strangers, and we may not see them again. So how do you keep track of all your projects? A nice archive of all your hard work. Today's guest, Kiley Ferons, and her husband have designed an app that can help. The My Quilts app keeps a photo record of all your projects, both the finished and the works in progress. And she's going to tell us all about it. So grab your sewing and a cup of tea, and here's my interview with Kiley Ferons. Welcome, Kiley, to the show. Whereabouts in the world are you coming to us from?
I live in Charlestown, West Virginia, which is just about an hour west of Washington, D.C.
And you're originally from that area?
Sort of, yes. I grew up south of D.C. in Fairfax, Virginia. Grew up there all my life, and my parents still live there. And it just got to be really crowded. And when we started having, building a family and having kids, we were like, I think we want a little bit more space. So plus it's cheaper. So we started moving further out, and now we live in beautiful West Virginia.
So have you been quilting since you were young, or did you discover quilting later?
I actually discovered quilting later. My mom was a seamstress, and so I kind of got an introduction to sewing from my mom, and she would make all of my prom and homecoming dresses growing up, and for all of my siblings as well. And then when I was in high school, I had to do a project with so many hours involved, and we decided to try our hand at quilting. And so we made a quilt together, but we chose a pattern that we thought was going to be easy. And unbeknownst to us, it was one of those that's on point, and that makes everything much more difficult. And so we were thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. It's just blocks. It was very difficult. And so I did my required hours, and then I said, forget it. I'm not finishing it. I'm not doing this. Never going to quilt again. But then when I got married, I married into a quilting family, and my mother-in-law is an avid quilter. She's been quilting for 20 plus years. She's been long arming for almost just as long. And so she inspired me to finish the quilt that I had first started, and had asked if I would be wanting to make a quilt for my baby when I was pregnant with my first. And at the time I was like, well, I don't really want to, get that into it. I don't really want to make a quilt for my baby, but I, wanted to make my mother-in-law happy. And so she helped me, and it made a world of difference having the right tools and somebody who knows what they're doing. And it was fantastic. And I kind of hit the ground running from there.
How long was it before you started designing your own patterns?
Let's see. I got married in 2010, and it wasn't until 2020 that I started writing patterns. So 10 years.
Why did you start designing?
That's kind of funny, because when I would read other people's patterns, I would always like to tweak them or change them, or I didn't like the process that they were showing. And so I would do things a little bit differently, and it drove my mother-in-law nuts. She was always like, just follow the pattern, trust the process. And I just couldn't do it. And so she eventually convinced me to start writing my own patterns. And so she helped me in 2020 write my first pattern. And then it was soon after that Elizabeth Chappell from Quilters Candy started offering a pattern writing course. And so I was one of the pilot testers for her course. And we learned so much, and it really helped to streamline the process of writing patterns.
So have you connected with local quilters in your community?
I have found a group of friends that quilt, but I haven't really done anything through like a guild or anything like that. It's always difficult with young kids trying to find time to go to the guild meetings and things like that. But I kind of forced my best friend to start quilting with me, and and don't worry, she loves it now. So I got her into it, and it's been wonderful that we can do that together. And then we have kind of just over time gathered a group of friends that quilt. And Sarah Diddy from Moda, the Moda designer, Sarah Thompson, she lives in our area. So she's around here. There's a couple of quilt shops around here that we've found friends through. And so we have our little community, but it's not big.
So do you go to QuiltCon?
I do. I love QuiltCon. I've gone to QuiltCon 3 years now so far. So actually, when I first started writing patterns in the course that I was taking, they gave us a list of publications that you could submit your work to. You know, things like Love Patchwork and Quilting and Make Modern magazine. And anyway, I was going through the list, and I really wanted a magazine that was kind of lifestyle meets modern quilting. And I really felt like I wasn't getting what I envisioned that I would want. And so, being kind of more business minded and entrepreneurial, I was like, I'll just make it myself. So, I started my own magazine in 2021 called Modish Quilter Magazine. I did that for a couple of years. So, with the magazine, I went to QuiltCon to promote the magazine for the last 3 years. So, we would have a booth, and me and my team is just a team of three of us. And we would go to QuiltCon and meet with people and kind of get that face-to-face time that's so important when you're building a business. And it was so much fun. I feel like QuiltCon is just like this big party of quilters, and it's just so much fun. And it's fun too. I have found that I have so many friends through Instagram that I've never met in person, but that I talk to, regularly. And so it was so nice every year to be able to meet some of my online quilty friends, for real life. So I love QuiltCon.
So do you put a label on your quilt?
I don't. I'm really terrible about it. I try to. I have labels, and I few and far between have a quilt with a label on it. I do always try to make sure that I put a label on ones that I'm gifting to other people, but I really should be better at it.
Now, you and your husband have an app, My Quilts App. Did that come out of a need to keep track of your works in progress or a way of cataloging what goes out the door?
Yeah, so I really wanted it mostly to catalog all of my past quilts. That was really the first intention of the app, was to catalog past quilts, because I found that I was starting to forget what was the name of the pattern that I used, what fabrics did I use, who did I give it to, what year did I make it. It was getting to be a little more convoluted, and at this point, having made, probably over 100 quilts, it's hard to remember, and so anyway, I really wanted something convenient and easy to use, and I wanted it to be digital. I wanted it to be on my phone. In a very much increasingly digital world, we find that people are using apps more and more. On average, people have about 80 apps downloaded on their phones and are spending hours of time, through their various apps. So I wanted it to be easy and convenient. And I knew that if I was looking for something like this, that other people would be too. And so, yeah, my husband is a software developer, and we've always wanted to try to combine our interests and do something together. And this seemed like the perfect opportunity. So I designed the app, and he developed it and wrote the software for it. And it's been a huge labor of love. Yeah, big labor of love, but it's been so rewarding and fun to work with my husband on something. It's been really fun. And B, to create something that other people are finding extremely useful and helpful in their quilting journeys.
How do people get a hold of it? Do they just download it?
You can search for it on any app store, whether you're Apple or Android. You just search for My Quilts, and you'll see my little green star logo. And you can download it from there. You can also go to my website, which is kileysquiltroom.com. And I have in the header there's a drop down when you can find it from there as well. Yeah, and you can download it and get started right away. It's free to any user.
It's got projects completed and saves. What are saves?
So saves are projects that you find from other quilters. So you can look through what other people are posting in the app, and anything that you find inspiring, whether it's their color palette, the fabrics they used, the pattern they used, the way they quilted it, whatever it is, you can save it. And it's kind of like a Pinterest type of idea, where you're curating a board of things that inspire you. So along the bottom of the app, you'll see an icon that is saved, that says saved, and it's got a little bookmark on it. And when you click on that, you'll find all the projects that you have saved, so that you can go back to it and find the inspiration that you had saved originally.
So I presume that you can share your own projects as well.
Yeah, so anytime you are uploading a new project, you always have the option to make it public or private. We encouraged you to make them private, but we understand sometimes it might have more sentimental meaning, or you just are not into making things public, and that's fine too. You can always toggle that off. But when it's public, then anybody can, if they are searching a keyword and your project has that keyword, then it would show up. Or if they're just looking at what is most recently posted, then your project would show up, and then they could save it if they, found it inspiring.
I see there's a journaling aspect to it as well.
Yeah, I didn't want a cataloging system that was very clinical. I wanted something that was a little bit more emotional, because quilting tends to be emotional. For whatever reason that we started quilting, for me, I found it very difficult to be a stay-at-home mom in the beginning, and I really needed a creative outlet that gave me a sense of accomplishment and a little bit more instant gratification, because as any mother knows, mothering is the long haul game. It is, you don't see the rewards for a while sometimes. So I really needed something else that kept my creativity flowing. And so I connected with quilting because it felt artistic. Whenever I'm making a quilt, I feel like I have specific thoughts that run through my head for each project, whether it's this is a new technique and I'm really enjoying this aspect of it, or this is what's going on in my life right now and why I chose this quilt pattern, or I'm making this quilt for a friend of mine and here are some thoughts I have about this friend and our connection, and just making it more of an emotional connection to your quilting. And I love having that journal aspect in the cataloging app so that you can go back and remember, what was your emotional connection to that quilt.
So I presume the journaling part of it is not public, even if the pictures are.
So all of it can be tailored to whatever you want. So when it's automatically public, but you can have a project public and turn the journal entry off. So they'll see the project, but not the journal entry. Or if you don't mind the journal entry being public, you can keep it public as well. The default is public, but then anytime you enter a new project, you can always change that one project to off if you need it to, or you can go into your profile settings and you can edit your privacy settings in there so that it is always off, and you can switch it on occasionally or always on and switch it off occasionally.
So for the pictures, do you give some suggestions on what type of pictures you should use?
Yeah, obviously, I think whatever pictures you can find from past quilts is great. Sometimes, especially those quilts that we've given away, you can't really retroactively take pictures. But moving forward, there are some photos that I feel like you will not regret taking. The first is taking a photo of your fabric before you cut into it. So whether it's a pre-cut bundle or if you curated your own bundle of fabrics, take a picture of them. Take a picture of them in a stack or maybe spread out in like a little bit of a rainbow. And the key to taking photos of fabric is making sure that you take them without artificial light. So no light bulbs, even if they say daylight light bulbs, no light bulbs. Take it near a window. You can see this window is pretty bright right now. And I've got a semi-sheer curtain over it to diffuse the light. So just taking a picture near natural light will help you get the correct colors to show through in your photos. Take a photo of your fabric before you get started. And then while you're going through your process, if there is a specific stage of the process that maybe you found interesting or that you struggled with, that you want to remember, or that you really liked, take a photo of that. Like, oh, I did all of these half square, look, I did 300 half square triangles. Take a picture of all your half square triangles, whether it's in a stack or if they're all messy, it doesn't matter. Take a picture of your process. And then I think most important is the finished photos. I love getting a full photo as flat on as I can get. It's not always possible. Sometimes I'll lay it out on the floor and I'll get my step ladder and try to take a picture from above as best I can. And then getting some close-up shots so that I can see the quilting on the quilt And again, if there's like a particular part of the quilt, like a block that you really liked, get a picture of it finished. And then I always take a photo of, like, you take the corner of the quilt and pull it over onto the front, so that now you have a photo of the back, the binding, and the front all in one shot. So those, I think, are my go-to collection of photos for a quilt that I would want in a catalog.
How long has the app been available?
We launched the app in September 2023, so I guess we're coming up on a year now. And when we first launched it, it was really more of like a beta test. Like, is this something people want and or need? Will they like it? Does it have the right features? What is it missing? How can we improve? So we did a lot of testing and we requested a lot of feedback, which people were anxious to give. People were loving the app, loved the idea of it, which was really encouraging. And then we got, a whole long list of features that people were requesting, and we're slowly trying to implement them. It will take us time. My husband's got a full-time job that he works during the day. This is all his part-time in the evening on the weekends. So it does take us time to get through these things, but there's a lot of really exciting things coming up. Back in May, we came out with our first really big update, where we updated the whole look of the app. We updated some features, some privacy settings. I have listed out all of those new features and how they work on my blog. So if you go to kileysquiltroom.com and go to my blog, you'll find the My Quilts App update blog, and that will kind of walk you through the app and what you can do. But we are working on newer feature sets all the time, and working on bugs. So if you come across something that's not working right, email us, let us know. We want to know so that we can fix it, because really this is still in those early stages and it's a lot of work and we can't catch everything. So yeah, so it's just a continual project that is going to take time to kind of smooth out, but so far it's been going really well. We have over 5,000 users and over 15,000 projects that have been logged so far.
Wow. Did you understand how difficult this was to program an app before you started?
I think the better question is, do you even understand what it takes to build an app? And the answer is no.
The complimentary question is, does your husband know how to quilt it yet?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't know how to quilt. He has picked up on a lot of things regarding quilting. He can, he knows some terms. He can look at what I'm working on. And in fact, a couple weeks ago, he saw something I was working on and he asked he said, "Aren't you going to lose your points?" And I was like, "No, there's a seam allowance. Like, don't worry, I got this." But he noticed and he was concerned. We want to combine our interests and we want to have a way to cross over and work together. And we work so well together. But sometimes he'll start telling me like, "Oh, well, I need to do this and this for the app, and it's going to take this and then this." And I'm just kind of like, I don't know why you're telling me. Like, it just goes over my head and I would rather you just not tell me. So yeah, we have our separate things that neither of us really cares to understand, but then we have this nice balance where we can come together and bridge our two worlds a little bit.
So have you passed on your love of quilting to any of your children?
Yes and no. I think that they love looking at how I design patterns. And actually one of my oldest, I one day was kind of sketching on graph paper and she was like, "I want to design a quilt." And so I got her some graph paper and she drew something out. And then I helped her kind of take her idea and put it into Adobe Illustrator, which is what I use, and showed her like, this is how you can kind of make it come to life. And she thought it was super cool, but then never wanted to actually make it. So yeah, none of them have actually made a quilt. I have, with my two older daughters, I have given them like a charm pack and let them kind of lay out what they wanted. I got them charm packs that they chose, and and then they got to lay it all out, but then neither of them really cared to actually sew it together. So I sewed it together for them, and then they get to sleep with it. But I do hope to pass it on to one of them. I think maybe my third or fourth might be the ticket to passing on quilting.
Are you working on a book? Did I hear you're working on a book?
I did just publish a book in the fall of 2023. It was released. It's called Modern Day Quilter. And that was a lot of work. I don't think I realized how much work putting a book together was going to be. I had this idea and I just thought, oh, this needs to be a book. And I pitched it to a publisher and they loved it. So I ran with it. But man, I really felt a lot of burnout after that and needed to kind of slow down and remind myself why I enjoy this and what about this process do I enjoy. But it was wonderful. So my idea for the book was I wanted a compilation of different techniques in one book that allowed quilters to feel comfortable trying something new. Because I feel like as quilters, sometimes we find ourselves stuck in a rut per se, or not, getting too comfortable in the techniques that you're used to and feeling too intimidated by new techniques like curves, foundation paper piecing, EPP, the list goes on and on. So what I wanted was to have a book that had different sections for different kinds of techniques. And I wanted to kind of walk you through the technique, explain to you how it works and what the process is, and then give you a small project to try it, and then work your way up to a quilt and making a whole quilt using those techniques. I'm very proud of it. It's a wonderful book. I love it. It's done really well, but I'm also glad that it's done.
And what's the name of the book?
It's called Modern Day Quilter. This is what it looks like.
Oh, wow.
Modern Day Quilter, and it goes over half square triangles, which I mean, that's like a foundational block of quilting, but kind of goes over the different ways you can get half square triangles. So whether it's, 8 at a time, 4 at a time, or individually. I go over flying geese, curve piecing, applique, improv quilting, foundation paper piecing, and Y seams. Super recommend. Which you can find on Amazon and on my website at Kiley's Quilt Room.
I noticed you've got 4 quilts in the background there. Is there a story behind any of them?
Let's see. This one, the big star, that one is my star weave pattern. It was the second quilt that I ever designed myself and wrote. And while it's not anything super unique, it is a very big block. And I wanted them really big because I wanted it to be bed sizes. I have a king size bed and I wanted a quilt on my bed, but I didn't want to make a quilt that had a bunch of tiny little pieces. I'd be, cutting and trimming for ages. So I wanted big blocks. So these are 20-inch blocks meant for bed sizes. So that's called Star Weave. And then this one, this long skinny one, was one of the first ones that I wrote and designed for Modish Quilter magazine. And it was in our pilot issue for the magazine. So that one was, a little bit sentimental. This one, this rainbow one, was the first time that I tried curves. And that pattern is actually by Quilter's Candy, Elizabeth Chappell. This is just one block, but she has a pattern for all of them. I think it's called Over the Rainbow. And then this one is just these little lemons. I was just messing around with pattern designing and I thought they were cute. And so I put it up there. I actually don't have a pattern for it. I just thought they were cute.
They fit very nicely in that little pocket there.
Yeah, it does. And it was also one of the first times that I tried quilting something myself on my domestic machine. And so that was a fun little something to try.
So how often do you have to say no?
To what? To my children?
There's just so many opportunities and ideas that come into your head, especially when you're starting a quilt business. How have you been able to filter out the ones that aren't important and keep focus on the ones that are?
That's a tough question. Yeah, because I feel like the majority of trying to stay focused is me telling myself no. Don't do that, Kiley. Your plate is full. Stop. It is hard. It's hard to balance because obviously I've got 4 kids. I love my family and I'm a stay-at-home mom. So that is my priority, is being here and being available for my kids. But I love having this business and growing this business and wanting it to succeed. And when I first started quilting, it was more about trying to decide what direction do I want this business to go and trying different things. So like I did long arming, I started pattern writing, did a book, I started a magazine. And then I have lots of ideas and I'm like, oh, I want to incorporate a quilt retreat. And so I did a quilt retreat for a little while. And then I had to tell myself, that's too much work. You don't need that to grow your business. That's not, an important integral part of what you're trying to build. It is hard having all these ideas and trying to scale back a little bit and being like, okay, you only have enough time for this. Let's bring it down a notch and focus on what you can do now and what is important to your goals. It is tricky. I do have to tell myself no a lot, or my husband will bring me down to earth and tell me.
Yeah, if only every day had 48 hours.
I know. I tell myself all the time, I could get so much more done if I didn't have to sleep.
I find I can do it maybe for a day, maybe even 2. But if I get less than 6 hours and I try for 8, it just catches up with me.
Yeah, I get really grumpy when I don't get enough sleep. So I like to be a night owl. I'm not a morning person. I find it's easier sometimes to get work done in the evening when my kids are in bed and the house is finally quiet. But then I'm up too late and it's a vicious cycle.
I find I can't do any creative things after dinner. Like I can put things in order and tidy up and things like that. But if I do it after dinner, then I'm up till like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, or when I finally go to sleep, I have a hard time turning my brain off because it's on creative mode, and then I just sit there like I could be doing this or this.
So are you doing anything fun with the app?
Yeah, so the app is, it's a lot of fun in and of itself, but we are running a big cataloging challenge in the month of July where we're going to give a new prompt every day for something to catalog. Because like I said, I've started to forget what I've made. So these prompts are there to kind of remind you like, oh yeah, I have a Halloween quilt, or I made a quilt with a charm pack or a jelly roll, or maybe it was a mystery quilt or a class quilt, whatever it is. We've got 30 days of challenges. And then each day we will pick at random any entry that was made that day and do a giveaway. So we have 30 days of giveaways happening in the month of July. And we've got some really awesome things to give away. We're giving away Olfa rotary cutter, cutting mat, some creative grids things. We've got fabric, we've got books, patterns, some unique things like some watercolor paintings that are quilty related, and jewelry that's quilty related, t-shirts, batting, all kinds of stuff. It's going to be so much fun. So I'm really looking forward to it. And the purpose is really just to get people using the app, get familiar with it, start cataloging your quilts that maybe you've forgotten about, and to get inspired by what other people are posting.
So once again, if people want to download the app, where do they go to?
They can go to the app store, whatever app store you use, and search for My Quilts. You can also go to my website, Kiley's Quilt Room, and download it from there.
And on your website, I presume there's a link to your book and your patterns too.
Yep. Yeah, you can find my book and all my patterns right there on the website. And then obviously I post all about it on Instagram, which is also Kiley's Quilt Room. And there's links from there as well.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Of course. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Kiley Ferons. I downloaded the My Quilts app yesterday, and I've already started logging my quilts. If you would like to download the My Quilts app for your archives, I will leave a link in the video notes below. I will also have a link to Kiley's website, social media, and her email. The next time you're in your sewing room, be sure to have Karen's Quilt Circle playing in the background. I have interviewed so many interesting people on this show. Let one inspire you. And don't forget last week's video. So take care, and I'll see you next time.